Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this conference stream of Sustainable Finance, ESG. For those not in the previous session, my name is Roel Mels. I'm Global Head of Marketing at TRD Screen, one of the co-organizers of this DKF event, together with Financial.com. And today I will be moderating this stream. Today's second session in the stream is about trends and hot topics in ESG, as you can read over there. And it will be hosted by Julia Haake from Moody's ESG Solutions. I'm looking forward to it, so let's dive into it. The floor is yours, Julia.
Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited to be here in person. It's probably also still a bit new to everybody to get together in a room without masks. I can only see one or two here, so this is great. My name is Julia Haake. I work at Moody's ESG Solutions. I'll give you a very quick overview of what we do at Moody's on ESG and what the different parts of Moody's do. This is going to be, I hope an interesting discussion this morning. I'll try to go through my presentation relatively quickly so that we have time for questions and answers and for discussion. So it's not going to be a sales pitch today. So we're really going to talk about what's going on in the market and how we at Moody's see where the market is going. So I will get started. So I will talk about trends and topics for ESG, but I'll also talk about ESG data really from a more general perspective because there's a lot going on, and I just talked to some colleagues, and it's really impressive to see how much ESG is around in this conference now as opposed to the last time. So everybody's talking about ESG data, but how do you actually define good ESG data? How do you get to good ESG data, and so that investors and other users and stakeholders can use that data in a significant and meaningful way. So that's going to be the second big part of the presentation. So first of all, very quickly on Moody's. So everybody knows Moody's, I guess, more or less. But Moody's is obviously very well known for its credit rating part, but we are, since several years, organized in a way that the credit rating agency is separate from a second big part of Moody's, which is Moody's Analytics, which is one of the sponsors of this conference today. And we have also, through acquisitions and organic growth, built a smaller additional department, which is called Moody's ESG Solutions, for which I work. We have, ESG is an integrative part of lots of things that we do at Moody's today. So on the MIS, so Moody's Investor Service, the credit rating agency, we have several parts of our analysis that really focus on how does ESG affect credit worthiness and probability of default. On the Moody's Analytics side, we have also various data points and other solutions that cover ESG topics. And then we have Moody's ESG Solutions, so that I just mentioned. So maybe very, very quickly, I promised you this is not going to be a sales pitch, but I do want to show you that we cover a whole very wide variety of ESG-related products. So ESG measures really covers the ESG ratings, the ESG data on various topics, also regulatory data, because that's what everybody's running after today. To answer a regulatory request for disclosure, especially. We also have a team that is in charge with climate solutions, so physical risk analysis and data, transition risk, and so on and so on. So I won't go into detail here. And on the sustainable finance side, so these are the three most important parts on the sustainable finance side. We are also an SPO, second party opinion provider for green and social and sustainability linked bonds. So right, and then we also have some index solutions and cover SME, small and mid-sized enterprise solutions. So that was the very short presentation of what we do at Moody's. So let me now go into the discussion on what's hot in ESG and sustainability this year. So this slide actually summarizes a publication that we issued very early this year, as lots of ESG research providers and other market players do early in each year. We provide or we issue a publication where we list and describe what we see are the hot topics. So really for this year, and this was before before Russia invaded Ukraine. So it's really interesting to see that many or several of these topics have really been exacerbated since end of February. So the first three topics that we see, and that's really an important trend, that the S in ESG, so the social part, is going to or is really on the top of the agenda. Obviously, we're talking a lot about climate and other environmental, other environmental topics. But the social topics are really very strongly on the rise. So access and affordability of products and services is really, one of the topics that we see in social debate in various regions and countries, and we are looking, very closely at how companies answer these requests for, better affordability and access to products and services. And this is obviously in the context of strongly rising inflation, became even more important over the last several months. Supply chain has always been, ESG and supply chains has always been an important topic in ESG research and ESG debate. But obviously, with the pandemic, this topic has really risen. So the supply chain topic in general has risen to the top of the agenda everywhere, and now with Ukraine, even more so. So we are really very strongly focused on looking into, supply chain issues, but also from an ESG perspective. And then the third important social topic is really working conditions and D&Y. So how do companies, treat their employees, and the whole well-being debate is most probably has also risen to the top of the agenda through the pandemic, and with home office working that everybody here knows very well about. So those internal social topics inside the firm are also really very important. I said, and everybody knows that climate is the hot topic. We have seen, especially during and post COP26, a lot of pledges for net zero, and a lot of companies and investors, by the way, committing to net zero. So that's really top of the heat environmental topic. But in combination with that, we are also hearing more and more about what we call just transition. I think most of you have heard about this too. But when we transition to a low carbon economy, what does that actually mean for employment, especially employment, but also working conditions, as we maybe move towards also probably re-industrializing a bit in European countries. So how is this transition, this structural change, actually going to work, and how can it be shaped so that it goes in a socially acceptable way? So big topic, a lot of discussion around that. And then to finalize on the environmental side, so biodiversity is clearly one of the very worrying environmental topics that is, similarly impacting for humanity from a what will our future look like perspective, and also from a threat perspective, threat to humanity. So that's definitely also a topic, and much less easier to measure. So stay tuned for more and more data providers also coming to the market with biodiversity-linked data, how to measure companies' impacts, but also dependencies. So very important topic. And then lastly, climate and biodiversity are already impact topics, environmental impact topics, but the whole discussion on impact is a very important one. And I wanted to highlight very quickly that there's also a foundational debate going on at the moment. I don't know if you've read several articles on, how do ESG research providers tackle their ESG ratings, and do they do that, simply from a financial risk perspective, so looking at how does ESG impact companies, or do they do that looking at how companies impact the environment, the society, and the economy. So that's really, that discussion about financial materiality versus sustainability materiality. And then the European community has adopted what we call double materiality that actually takes into account both. And this is also what we have chosen at Moody's ESG Solutions. This is really the foundational perspective of our ESG ratings. So just wanted to highlight this without being too salesy, of course, as agreed. Good. So where's the ESG market going? So this is really more about sustainable investment and sustainable investment and sustainable finance. So very, very quickly, sustainable investment, has really grown very strongly, especially in Europe and EMEA over the last 10 years and more. But we have also seen strong growth and interest and a rising maturity in North America. Canada is historically already a bit further advanced, but the US has really caught up with the rest of the ESG mature markets, and we really count it now among the mature markets that we see, and as well as Australia and New Zealand, that are also countries where sustainable investment and sustainable finance is really very strongly anchored in the market. So, and in Europe, obviously, a lot of pressure from regulation and stakeholders with regulation now with the EU Sustainable Finance Action Plan and various regulations that are coming out of that. We also see really increasing competition amongst asset managers who want to showcase that they're very advanced in terms of sustainability and sustainable investment. In the Americas, there is less drive or direct drive from regulation, more indirect drive through what's going on in Europe. But now the SEC, as you're probably aware, has also opened a consultation recently and starts to think about future disclosure on climate especially. So that's also an important drive. How many minutes do I have? Where do we stand?
Good. We have 15 minutes left.
15?
1-5,
yeah. Okay, good. So I'll try to speak a bit faster. There are so much interesting things to tell you. Anyway, APAC is not as mature as the rest of, as compared to Europe and North America, but we are really seeing very strong growth, especially amongst asset owners that are obviously then pushing asset managers, and we are also seeing, some the Common Ground taxonomy, the ASEAN taxonomy, and other taxonomies rising. So there's a lot of debate now on ESG in Asia. In Asia Pac. So I think this is we're heading to a situation where ESG is everywhere, and ESG is of strong importance everywhere. And there's a little bit more data on growth of PRI signatories, of the ESG data and information market, which is interesting for you all here, that has strongly grown also over the last several years. This is an Optimus study, I think, study that is interesting to have a look at if you're interested in that. Right, so are there any questions so far? No? All fine? Good. Then let me continue and let's have a bit closer look at what is actually high quality ESG data, and how do you define that, and where are we, or what's the situation today? Because it's not necessarily easy. So first of all, what ESG data does the market actually need? So there are 3 characteristics that we see as ESG data provider that are really very strongly asked for in the market. So first of all is coverage. I think you all, know about that. Everybody wants a highest possible coverage of companies, of ESG data on companies and other asset classes. Then the data quality, of course, but we'll come back to that. And then, the variety of topics is really another characteristics is, ESG is like, of course, there are the 3 environment, social, and governance pillars, if you want. But underneath, there are dozens and dozens of topics that have to be addressed or that can be addressed. And, ranging from, of course, climate, biodiversity, but also other toxic emissions and so on and the environmental side, but also how does a company manage their environmental impact, and how do they reduce their environmental impact, what kind of targets do they set, and so on and so on. On the social side, working conditions, all those topics that I mentioned at the outset of my presentation, but also, human rights, societal topics, very important. And on the governance side, obviously, how does a company manage sustainability, but also, all the more traditional governance data that you probably all know, board independence, executive remuneration, and so on and so on. So a large variety of topics. So basically, people that buy ESG data not only want those, E, S, and G scores or overall ESG scores, but they want to dive down, or many of them, or of you, by the way, want to dive down and have a close look what, on a very detailed topic perspective, how our company is positioned. And then, so what we also see, bit varying demand also in different places, or from different types of market players. Some really want that raw data, right? They want to have their own perspective on ESG and sustainability. They want the data, and they want to build their own models. Or they want, mapped data because they have to respond to SFDR, or they want to analyze their portfolios concerning other regulations, EU taxonomy, or the SDGs, or the UN Global Compact, or other norms, standards, and regulations. So that's one aspect. And the second one is obviously the ratings and the scores overall, but also on the topic level. And then, that materiality approach that I mentioned earlier. There is demand for the risk assessment, there is demand for the impact part, and there is demand for merging both under the double materiality hat. So let's dive a little bit more into the quality of the data, because one of the problems that we see, we as those people who collect and analyze the data from companies, we see gaps and holes in the whole picture, because not all companies disclose. And sometimes they disclose, but it's not really clear how they get to the final data point and so on. So we really need, that fundamental and overarching disclosure from companies. And there are, different types of disclosures from companies. So the first one is really that raw data that, what's their impact, how do they perform on the various KPIs ESG linked, and also, what are their policies on human rights, on labor rights, and so on and so on. The second aspect is that we also look for more granular sector-specific indicators, data. We do a lot of deep dives on a sector level. It's not all about all companies in all sectors reporting on the same framework, but you have to go deeper if you want the real ESG picture, sustainability picture of a company. You need to look at, how an automobile car producer, what the average emissions of their vehicle fleet is, or I don't know, a media company, how they protect their journalists in crisis regions and things like that. So you have to be able to get that sector-specific information from companies. And then lastly, and this is really something relatively new still, is that we also need detailed business information. That's critical because we need to analyze, how many percent of a company's revenue stems from either sustainable positive, from sustainability contributing products, or negatively impacting products such as, I don't know, alcohol, tobacco, but also, fossil fuels and so on and so on. So, and that's obviously problematic to find such kind of data because obviously companies find that critical or sensitive from a competitive situation to disclose such kind of data. So we see that there are a lot of lacking information when we look at companies. We think that the situation, well, it has obviously already improved a lot, but we think that it will improve in the near future. So, and especially reporting frameworks that have already been used in the past, like the GRI, like SASB, like the CDP, TCFD, all these different reporting frameworks are very helpful on the one hand for the companies to know what they have to disclose on, but also to make the information that we find out there comparable. Very important. And very strong future drivers are going to be ISSB, so the International Sustainability Standards Board that is currently working very strongly on preparing internationally valid standards for ESG reporting. The CSRD on the European side is doing the same thing. The EU taxonomy is going to be helpful in what's going on in the US with the SEC. But it will take time. Not all companies are going to, from one day to the next, going to report, and especially smaller companies are going to continue to have a hard time to find the resources to disclose all that information because it takes time to collect and to disclose and to make available. Right, and then maybe and I'm also almost finished, so
5 minutes left.
yeah, that's good. So I'm almost finished. I think there is one slide after this one, and it's all good. So from an ESG data provider's perspective, how can we fill those gaps and holes? Because as I said, our clients want the whole picture. They want high coverage, and they don't want data files with holes in them. So what can we do to fill those holes? So a first solution is to basically just attribute bad scores when there's no information. So that's, sort of frustrating, but many people do it. And then second solution would be for those companies that do not disclose to just use sector average scores. but that obviously penalizes smaller companies that don't disclose. And then you can also go deeper into modelizing data, but that only works, and you can get really good outcome, pretty close to real life situations if you have, company size, sector, and location data that you can use to build models. And we can talk to you about that a bit more. The colleagues from Moody's Analytics here, they know all about it. We have great data. Sorry, I wasn't going to try to sell anything. Okay, good. And then last but not least, a lot of clients ask, so how actually can the ESG data help me look into the future and anticipate how a company is going to perform from an ESG perspective? So obviously we can also model that data, and we have, and we and other providers have temperature alignment or scenario analysis on the climate side and on other types of topics to see what's, to predict what's going to happen in future. But also, and I'm going to finish with that, we do think that through our qualitative analysis of how a company positions itself in terms of policies and their measures and their behavior, we think that this in itself is a forward-looking way to see how a company is positioned to answer the ESG ESG requests and regulation and so on. Right. So this was it. I'm sorry. It's always the same. I like to tell a lot about all these things, and then it takes longer than expected. But I hope we have time for a couple of questions.
Maybe some questions from the audience. Don't be shy.
Yeah. A question about the corporate data you use, you consume a question about the data you source from the companies directly. Do you challenge them somehow? Do you prove it for consistency, for example, as we have seen in the morning? There are public reports out there which are audited by one of the big fours, but on some measures there are no metrics on it and so on. So do you compare and challenge these data?
Yeah, of course. I mean, on the one hand, so we do consult companies as well. So we have a issuer engagement platform where we provide the data and they can interact with us and provide additional information, for example. But we also obviously compare on a sector level if data makes sense, if there is coherence, and then that I haven't gone into that, but we always look at the policies that companies have and the measures that they put in place to implement policies, but we also have that real life verification or reality check if there are controversies in that specific area, and then we would downgrade the policies and measures section of that specific topic. Good.
Any other questions, maybe? No?
Okay.
If you change your mind, Julia will be available at the event, the booth of Moody's. So, Julia, thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your time. Very insightful. I learned a lot. So, little present for you to thank.
Thank you.
Here you are. Thank you all.